Manchester City are aiming for a fifth successive Premier League title this season. But off the pitch, life is not so smooth. As we know, the Premier League levelled 115 charges against them 18 months ago over alleged financial irregularities, which City emphatically deny. But we're wondering, will there be a resolution this season to this 115 charges, which has been hanging over the game for so long? Well, here to pick the bones out of it all are Martin Lipton, who's the chief sports reporter for The Sun, and Martin Blackburn, our Manchester City correspondent. Chaps, let me know, will there be a resolution this season, Martin Lipton?
Yes.
Yes?
Probably. Probably.
When will that be? Martin Blackburn's looking at us going, God, will there? Why, how is that, Martin?
So we know that the case will start to be dealt with October, November. It will take, I reckon, at least a month to go through the evidence. And I suspect around March, April time, we will get a result. And that's where it gets tricky. If the result is in City's favour, that's the end of the matter. They will be cleared. They will have no punishment to face. That's it. The Independent Tribunal Commission, which will sit in judgment, has the right to impose any penalties whatsoever. If City are found guilty, these will be the heaviest penalties ever imposed by the Premier League. I suspect if they are found guilty, they will be expelled from the league or given a massive points deduction and a huge fine so that they're not in the Premier League next season, which is where it starts to get tricky. Because, of course, City, having spent this much money on lawyers to get to this point, are not just going to say, OK, fair cop, that's all right, take their punishment. They will appeal. Now, this is where it becomes slightly more complicated in that normally when a Premier League tribunal imposes a penalty, that applies instantly. If you look at Everton last year and Forest, those point deductions were put in place pending an appeal. But the timing of the resolution to the City case, any appeal will take months. And of course, the new season officially starts at the summer meeting in July when the 20 clubs gather. And if City aren't there, they can't play in it. So unless the tribunal puts in basically a suspension of the penalty pending an appeal, City will not be able to be in the Premier League next year, even if they subsequently win their case. So it's a bit messy even then.
It still sounds pretty complicated. Martin Blackburn, you've been on tour with City during the summer. Is it something that is discussed by officials and hangs over their heads, or do they just get on with the football?
I think, you know, Sean, it's very much business as usual, really, as far as City are concerned. They are supremely confident that they're not going to be relegated. You know, whether there's any sort of punishment at all, we wait and see. But there's certainly no doubts in their minds that they're going to end up in the Championship or even lower in 12 months' time. You know, I don't think everybody is quite as confident as they are. A lot of sort of experts wonder if something, some sort of fate like that might be awaiting them. But it certainly in City's minds, it's very much business as usual. They're you know, they're going about their transfer business, and of course they've also got all these clubs around the world, which sort of, you know, Man City is sort of the mothership, if you like, of all these clubs around the world, and they're operating as normal as well. So yeah, they think they're going to be exonerated. Obviously, they've said that all along, but we'll wait and see. I think Martin's right. I think there will be something at some stage this season, but as he says, there's a very small window when it can come out. You know, you're in danger otherwise of making a mockery of the whole league season unless you sort of pitch it at the end of the season or in the close season.
I think we should explain probably that we only know about what City are alleged to have done because of a German magazine, Der Spiegel. They revealed certain emails which seem to point to financial irregularities. But when you look at the 115 charges, you see 54 are failure to provide accurate financial information, 14 failure to provide accurate details for player and manager payments. These are all between 2010 2018. Failure to comply with UEFA rules, breaching Premier League PSR rules. It's quite a rap sheet, Martin Blackburn.
It is, Sean, yeah. And I think, you know, Martin and I sort of disagree a little bit on this. I mean, I think the most likely outcome is that the Premier League will struggle to make the most serious charges stick, but they will sort of do City for non-cooperation, which is what quite a number of those charges you just read out are. I think that's a possibility. A little bit like what happened with Cass in the end. They got fined for non-cooperation, but it is quite a rap sheet, as you say, and I guess that's why it's taking so long. You know, the Everton and Nottingham Forest cases were sort of fairly open and shut ones. These ones are a lot more sort of nuanced, if you like. There's a lot more sort of things that need to be proven on both sides, and I think you'll probably find at the moment there's possibly millions of pieces of paper which are being sort of being passed around between the two sides. So yeah, it's going to be a long process. Even when the hearing starts, there's so much evidence that needs to be gone through. So yeah, I don't think anybody should be holding their breath for a resolution just yet.
Martin Lipton, what is the feeling among the other Premier League clubs about this? Because certainly people I talk to feel that City are dragging this out, even though they claim they want to clear it up. They're dragging it out using expensive lawyers, and perhaps the longer you drag it out, the more it'll be forgotten about and say, oh, well, it was years ago, clean slate, start again. Is there any possibility that could happen, or is that a fear among other Premier League clubs?
The Premier League clubs are out for blood. There's no question about that. They want, if City are found guilty, and this is the big thing. I don't know. I'm not a jurist. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not an expert at anything, as you'll doubtless tell me. So I don't know. But if they're found guilty, the expectation and demand will be huge penalties. What's really interesting is that the tribunal could order compensation to be paid by City to other clubs. If you look back at the Everton one, that there were 4 clubs who were allowed to make a claim and then chose not to. The compensation, probably because most of them have been at it themselves, as we see with that.
Allegedly, Your Honour.
Well, Forest have been banned and Leicester have been charged, so that's 2 of them. What you then have is whether or not that determination will be made. It could be, quite possibly, that the tribunal says, no, we won't allow you to make a compensation claim. And I suspect, this is purely me, that if they are found guilty, there will be no retrospective punishments for City. And the main reason for that, above all, is actually sort of an image one. The single most iconic moment in the history of the Premier League will not have existed if City face a retrospective punishment for that season. The Aguero goal didn't mean anything because they didn't win the league, because they were 3 points or whatever less, and United won the league. So I think that any punishment will be a one if they are found guilty. Let me stress, if they are found guilty. There's no guarantee of that at all. But I suspect it will be a single, huge one-off penalty.
Martin Blackburn, is there a feeling at City that the other clubs are out to get them, the fans want to get them, it's them against the world, and it's just not fair?
Yeah. I think there certainly is that, Sean. Yeah, but there's a fair amount of jealousy out there, isn't there? Really, City have sort of dominated the league really for certainly in the last 8 years. The last 7 years of Guardiola's reign, they've won 6 of them. So there's certainly there's always been that feeling as well at City that the sort of established big clubs, if you like, have been trying to sort of reign against them, if you like. I mean, City, when the takeover came, there was a bunch of clubs who always got the Champions League places, if you like, and I think there's been a feeling that those clubs have been doing everything possible to sort of put a spoke in the wheels, if you like, for City. So yeah, there's still that feeling, and I think Martin's right. I think the other clubs will want City to have the book thrown at them, which there's no doubt that they will if they're found guilty. There's no other way around it. The other thing to mention that we haven't touched on is that, it's not just City who are under the microscope. It's the companies who've sort of done business with them, because the sort of the thrust of it is that they've sort of, I don't know, they've massaged the numbers in terms of in terms of their books. So it's yeah. I mean, there's no way that companies like Etihad and Etisalat, the Abu Dhabi government, if this case goes against City, that they're just going to take it lying down. So it's going to get very messy. There's no doubt about that. If indeed they are found guilty.
What do you think Pep Guardiola's attitude is to it all right now?
Well, Pep's always said, Shaun, right from when the charges came, which is amazingly is 18 months ago now, that the Premier League decided they were going to charge City. He gave this outstanding press conference the Friday after. I think the charges came in on a Monday, and he gave his press conference on the Friday. Spoke really well. Spoke about how much he loves City, and as you'd expect after 8 years there, and all his mates working around him, came out really swinging and said that he will not be going anywhere until this case is resolved, which is interesting, given that his contract is up next summer. So whether those two things will align, and the verdict will come out, and Pep's contract will be up, we wait and see. But yeah, I mean, he's been assured by those above him that City are going to be cleared, and he has also said in the past that he's been shown evidence which makes him sure that they are going to be cleared. Now, what that evidence is and why nobody else has seen it, we're not too sure. But yeah, whenever it comes up, which is occasionally, not often, but occasionally, he's very much sort of defensive of his club, and always speaks very well about it, to be fair to him.
Martin Lipton,
I think you've got a point in. I was going to say that one of the things we've got to take into account here is, for this Premier League case to be proven, they've also got to effectively show that a number of blue chip companies, including one of the biggest accountancy practices in the world, actively were part of a cover-up. That's a pretty big ask. Yeah. That's a really big ask.
Can you explain why that is?
Well, because they signed off the books. I think was it PwC? I'm not quite sure, but it's one of the biggest accountancy firms who work for City. They signed off the books. Now, the issue with the alleged off-the-book payments to Mancini when he was manager and players, I think that's easier to prove if you can find the secondary contract. We've had this here with other clubs in the past where the image rights deals were sort of hidden from the tax man, and they ended up with hefty tax bills when HMRC uncovered that. And those are perhaps more provable and far less serious, without question, in terms of Premier League rulebook, if they again are found proven. But it's a really big issue that has got to be overcome by the Premier League lawyers. There's no question about that.
When UEFA went after City ultimately won their case. What is the difference? How were they able to do that? And is that why they feel emboldened in this case as well?
Different legal requirements, different tribunal. In the case of the UEFA situation, it went to the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and it was a 2-1 majority verdict in City's favour. It wasn't as if it was a whitewash and all three judges ruled against them. And a lot of the ruling was on the basis of the time limitations on UEFA rules about when you're allowed to prosecute them. There are no time bars in Premier League rules. All Premier League tribunals are assessed on not a criminal bar, but a civil bar. So it isn't beyond reasonable doubt as it would be in a criminal case. It's balance of probabilities, i.e., who do you believe the most, which does change the nature of it. And again, it could be a 2-1 verdict either way, or a 3-0 verdict from these three judges. In the case of CAS, both UEFA and City were allowed to propose a member of the tribunal with them agreeing on a third. All the parties can do in a Premier League case is oppose the imposition of a judge. They can't determine who the judges are. There will be at least one senior lawyer. I wouldn't be surprised it's the former Master of the Rolls who has dealt with other Premier League cases recently, so that there can be no question about the legal probity of the panel. There'll be a senior accountant, a specialist in numbers as well, and a third person. But these will all be legally qualified. There won't be, quotes, football people on this. This is the lawyers. This is a legal game.
But it'll all be behind closed doors. We won't be able to know any of the evidence that's raised. And at the end of it, somebody will say, well, here's the judgment. Now you've just got to deal with it.
Yeah, we will get a verdict when it's announced, and soon afterwards, if not on the day, and I think it will be on the day, we will have the full written reasons. 400 pages later, we'll still not be able to make head or tail. It will be one of the lengthiest documents you have ever seen, just because of the sheer proliferation of evidence from both sides being put into this. This is not going to be something that's easy by any stretch. But the only thing that matters will be what's the verdict on the final page.
Okay, I'm going to put you both on the spot here. I'm going to start with Martin Blackburn. Martin Blackburn, what do you think is going to happen, and will we know this season?
Yeah, I think we will hear something in the spring, Sean. I think it's gone on long enough. I mean, that in itself isn't a reason to that it should finish. There's got to be a legal process that sort of runs its course. But I just think that the onus is on the Premier League to prove this one, and I think it's going to be very difficult for them to prove the most serious allegations. Like I said earlier, the non-cooperation ones, they could probably get City on those ones. That would be almost certainly a fine rather than a sporting sanction, a points deduction. But yeah, that would be my sort of best guess, I suppose, that the most serious charges won't be proven. But there is a non-cooperation charge comes in.
Martin Lipton, your verdict.
In a rare moment of unity,
yeah,
I agree with Martin.
Do you?
I'm not convinced that this is a case that's going to be able to be proven. That doesn't mean I'm right, and it may be that the lawyers are able to make that case, and the legal proof required helps. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, well, it's okay for City, they're going to win because they got David Panic as their QC on his 10 grand a day. But last time any of us saw David Panic, he was sat next to Boris Johnson, and that went really badly for his client. So there's no guarantee at all. But I just think it's a really hard sell for the Premier League to get this one over the line, just because of the sheer determination by City. And they've got to prove, as I said, that senior executives at the club, senior executives at the Abu Dhabi government, senior executives at a senior blue chip accountancy firm, etc., knowingly, deliberately, and without any question in their heads, contrived to lie. That's a really big ask.
Actually have to? Is that what they actually have to prove?
Well, they have to prove that normal people looking at the evidence will agree that they lied. That's effectively what it is.
Well, you can still do something which you do inadvertently, if you like, which breaks the rules, and therefore you can be punished for it.
But this is all about deliberate breaking of rules. If the charges are proven, they have to be deliberate, because you can't hide £60 million, as is being alleged. And I'm not saying they did it. Let's make that clear. You can't hide a £60 million by accident. You know what you're doing. And this is the argument that the Premier League are using the emails sent by people within City that they say proves this was a deliberate act. The City case is, well, we might have said we were going to do it, but we didn't actually do it. That's very, very basic and limited version of it. Their argument is we did nothing wrong.